Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions, my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival Season 2, Episode 7, Some Kind of Magic.
A kind of magic.
A kind of magic.
You know, I did that too. In a couple places, I put some kind of magic.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I don't know where that came from, but it's definitely a kind of magic.
Maybe that's because that's the actual expression and they kind of mess with it a little bit.
I don't know, but I did that too. Like when I was working on the thumbnail and stuff for the Facebook group.
Okay. The episode's description reads as follows. Ben leaps back to 1962. Wow, no, not at all. 1692. The farthest he's ever been, where he finds himself on trial for practicing witchcraft with limited records online. The team must race to save him before he's put to death. The episode was directed by Avi Yabian, and he was responsible for last season's Stand By Ben.
Okay.
And the episode was written by Margarita Matthews. This is her first credit of the season. She was actually a story editor last season. For some reason, she isn't one this season. Not sure what happened there. But before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out and come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. Alright, so we're doing things up front this week. I'm going to give my shout-outs, and then we're going to go into background information from last week's episode, because as you know, we have screeners, so we didn't actually have access to this information after
when we were recording.
Yeah.
So basically we're going to revisit episode 206, Secret History, for just a few minutes before we get too deep into this one.
So an hour later, we'll actually be talking about the episode that we're actually here to cover. Alright, so shout out for Kelly M. She was impressed that we got screeners. It's like we're official now.
I know, right?
Ashley Wright suggested the plot of the season might be like Predestination, in that Hannah and Ben might lead to the birth of Sam or another major character. It's too late for Sam.
Yeah, a lot of people suggested that online, and I don't know if these people need to go take a rewatch of the original series, because we know very well who Sam's parents are, and he was definitely, already...
Right.
Already, so wait a minute. What year was Secret History?
It was like 1955.
55. Sam was born in 53.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but he gave some wiggle room in his comment in suggesting that it could be some other major character. So it's possible. By the way, have you seen the movie Predestination?
I don't think so.
Okay, I would suggest that you put it on your watch list, because it's definitely worth a movie checking out. I would be very curious to hear your thoughts. Maybe we'd even do a podcast on it.
Yeah, we'll add it to our list of 8 million things we want to cover. Sure.
Basically, you can watch it on Hulu right now.
Okay.
So that's a good place.
That means by the time we get around to it, it won't be available anywhere.
Right, pretty much.
But my take on the whole Hannah and Ben and what this could mean for the future, our present. And I'm just going to say the same thing I keep saying, online, in all of these discussions, is Hannah can't be... I'm trying to see how to word this. She can't be involved in a way that she does something that's already part of the story.
Right.
Because until Ben met Hannah, this was not her life.
Mm-hmm.
She was a waitress. She, had done this work during the war, but her life went in a totally different direction. And it was Ben interjecting and telling her to go to Princeton.
Yeah.
And then again meeting her there, that he's affecting her life.
Mm-hmm.
And changing her life, every time he interacts with her.
Right.
So we can't say I've seen people say she was the leader of Starbright, or, she's the one who...
I'm pretty sure Sam was the leader of Starbright.
I don't think he was the leader, but he was... he was involved.
I'm pretty sure it was his project.
I mean, Quantum Leap was his project. I don't think he started Starbright, though. No? I think he
just was, like,
I think
recruited.
he got... Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100... We don't know a whole lot about Starbright, to be honest.
Yeah, we only have, like a few
I mean, he was high up there, but I think there were other people, like...
I think there's some references to it in the book where it might clarify that, but then that's not necessarily canon.
But anyways, like... No, it can't be that Hannah did some big thing that affected what we know in the original history.
Right.
Because then that would imply that we're living in a universe where everything that has happened with leaps already happened.
Yeah.
Which isn't the case, because the whole point of Quantum Leap is we're changing history.
Right.
So they can't do that.
Right.
Like, it has to be like whatever happens that, you know, Ben and Hannah's interactions change the course of history. It has to be new history.
Right.
It has to be something that could affect our present day, could affect the future of whatever. But it can't be like, this is, you know, they parented some character that we already know.
Yeah.
Because that's not how time travel works in the universe of Quantum Leap.
Right.
That's like some, you know,
some other
dark stuff. Dark on Netflix. If you've never seen it, go check it out.
Right, you should. So Pride Force says, the weaponization of clean energy into something destructive is a theme that keeps popping up in the series. That's something you pointed out a couple of times, I think, already.
Yeah. And, you know, I said I was going to go back and rewatch Leap Die Repeat, and I haven't done that yet.
I also have not done
Things have been really busy.
I mean, it's the holiday season, so you kind of expect that. A thought occurred to me. So, the formula from Secret History, which leads to a bomb, is something that Ziggy now has. Ziggy translated
Does
this.
he?
Yes, because
Ziggy we were told Ziggy finished translating it, and it's a bomb.
Yes, so somewhere in Ziggy's, banks is this new destructive information.
Right.
So that's kind of concerning.
And that happened before we fixed the chip?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm slightly concerned about that. I think that might actually come back into the story in some way.
That totally could. You're right. Because it's potential that whoever was stealing data, a.k.a. Rachel's boss, could have that information.
Anthony Sanchez has a bunch of thoughts related to Hannah. She could be the person to bring Ben home, possibly. Be the head person controlling or blackmailing Ian. That was one of my thoughts. But you poo-pooed that sense. Basically, she cannot be that person because she would be way too old at that point. But she could be the parent of the person that is. Right. In that way. It could be like a descendant.
I'm trying to remember the history. Did we know about that before or after Ben met Hannah?
I think that started in episode 2, that whole plot line.
So
that would be before, yeah.
So he hadn't interacted with her yet.
No. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but then it'd be like cause proceeding effect.
Yeah, and it's a very tricky thing to talk about when we're talking about time travel.
Yeah.
Because, again, the whole concept of the show is we're changing things actively.
Right.
So if, like, the changes already happened, but then again, we're also dealing with the fact that this isn't the first leaps.
Right.
Supposedly, Addison already did all this. And Ben's now changing history by the fact that he left. So there are potential other timelines that exist between the original history and this history.
Right. And now I got this giant headache forming. I should have brought aspirin down.
So I was just thinking about, like, what you were saying about the formula and the bomb.
Yeah.
And I had a thought, but now I don't know if that fits into what I'm saying about things couldn't have already happened.
Well, you might as well share it.
Okay, so season 1 story arc.
Yeah.
That we're going to have some apocalyptic World War III future.
Okay.
That we still don't know how that happened.
Right.
And the government's blaming Quantum Leap.
Right. Okay.
And Ian's like, they're using us as a scapegoat. Well, what if Quantum Leap did cause it? What if Quantum Leap caused it? Because this formula got out.
Okay.
And that's what caused whatever happened in the future, 2051.
So it's quite possible that the previous episode could be more significant than we think currently.
But if that's the case, it would have had to have happened in some reality that didn't involve Ben and Hannah. It would have involved some reality where Addison was the leaper, because that's when that history, that future first started.
Hannah still could have been involved because because Ben changed that.
Ben sent her to Princeton.
Unless Addison did that somehow, but I doubt it. Yeah.
Actually, would Addison have even done season 2 leaps, because she was supposed to die at the end of season 1?
Right. So, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I think we should move on from this, because I think we could just continue to talk about this.
I wonder if this is what being part of the writers' room discussions feels like.
I'm sure. Hannah could also be the key to finding Sam. That's a theory that's come up before.
Yeah, I think that's a much more plausible thought, that she could be involved in something that's some catalyst for future events.
Right. Somehow related to the evil Leaper, or somehow Martinez. Those are some interesting thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think I should comment on that.
Okay.
Or we're going to go on a whole other tangent again.
Right. Chris Coleman, in response to you saying that finding the formula was more of a Lothos goal, says that Ziggy had actually no way of knowing whether that formula was good or bad until they discovered it and realized it was bad. So it seems he thinks this is basically a classic quantum leap trope.
Right.
Them thinking it's one thing when it turns out to be another.
Right.
And so I don't think this is necessarily a bad goal from Ziggy. Ziggy just didn't have all the information that Ziggy needed. He also brings up that only the observer remembers the original history after it's changed. That's how he thinks things works. He specifically brings up JFK, the episode, as an example, and why when his history was changed, he was able to be in this marriage without all the old memories intruding on his brain, because he was not involved in that leap, so therefore he did not remember the original events. But if he had been involved, he would have had the original memories. That's Chris Coleman's thoughts on those.
So on that theory, we're saying that old Al, doesn't remember all of his other wives?
Yes.
I don't know if I like that.
No.
I want Al to know both histories.
Well, Al's dead currently, so... okay, so you wanted him to remember both histories so that he could have
somebody has to remember the history that we know.
Right.
Somebody has to.
Well, I think Sam would.
Sam would.
But we don't know where Sam is, so it's not like we can talk to him.
Actually, would Sam?
Why wouldn't he?
Does he remember 2 different every leaps? Because those changes would have changed every leap.
That's fair. Yeah. Not sure, to be honest.
That's a lot of information to hold in your brain.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to move on before I start getting another headache. Well, talking about time travel is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You could get lost into this black hole and never recover. Kind of like if you go down Fromville, for instance, if you get involved in theories in that. All right, so Stacie, let's get into your Secret History.
All right, so Secret History little revisits few things. So Secret History was the highest rated episode of the season so far.
Okay.
Which is amazing news.
That is good news.
Our ratings are going up.
Mm-hmm.
As of the time we're recording this, we still don't have any news about a season 3 renewal.
Mm-hmm. Or even when season 2's.
Right, we don't have a return date for the following 5 episodes. We do have some production info, though, that we'll get to in just a few minutes. So, yeah, we don't know for certain if we're going to get a 3rd season. We're all very hopeful. And the fact that the ratings are going in a upward direction is a positive note towards that.
Absolutely.
Right? There's no real reason to think that we're in danger right now. Mm-hmm. Considering season 2 in general has been doing better than season 1 did.
Yep.
And with episode 206 having the highest ratings of the season means we're not going down in our mid-season slump. We're
right.
growing up,
mm-hmm.
which is right where you want to be when they're trying to make these decisions. And we don't know that a decision hasn't been made. It just hasn't been made public.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we have information on that, you better believe we will be sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's entirely possible by the time this airs, information is out. I doubt it.
So what we're talking about now is live ratings, correct? Not also including the streaming numbers in that.
Right. It's the live plus one, like the DVR
Okay.
It's live and DVR.
But we're not talking
But
about
it doesn't
streaming.
include Peacock because those numbers aren't public.
And
we
I
only know
believe,
Peacock numbers when NBC chooses to publish them.
I believe that NBC made the original decision to, renew the season and give it more episodes based on its Peacock numbers.
Right.
As opposed to live
They did
ratings
at
last
one
season.
point during season 1 say it was their highest or most watched show on Peacock during season 1.
So one could surmise that the live numbers going up also means that the streaming numbers probably also went up.
Yeah. That seems like a logical thought.
Right.
To me.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Mm-hmm. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But
But what I have to say to our viewers is if you can watch live or DVR it, do so.
Mm-hmm.
Because that does play into the ratings that the network is looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And for some silly reason, networks favor live ratings over streaming.
Gotcha.
Because network television has not caught up to, the times.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just because they get more money for advertisers during live
I kind of think that's probably the case.
Yeah.
They probably have more...
So, this is the case for any show. Any show that you want to support and want to get, renewed. Always try to watch live or DVR it if you have the capability to do so. It helps the numbers more than streaming.
Right.
So, if you have the option, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or turn your TV on and go to bed. That's fine. And watch it streaming the next day. But get those ratings in there.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, always just watch everything that you love and support it. And always support the networks that bring you the things that you love.
Absolutely.
Because that's supporting your show and supporting everybody involved in the show and helping to get things renewed and make more television.
Which we absolutely love.
Which we love.
Especially here.
Yeah. We wouldn't be too far if there wasn't television.
Nope.
Speaking of which, how exciting is it that, the strike settled, television's being made. Mm-hmm. As of when we're recording, we don't have an answer yet on the ratification of the SAG contract.
Which I hope it does get ratified.
There is some lingering concerns that that's not going to go through. I don't want to talk too much on it because I'm not knowledgeable enough with all the details.
Yes, yeah.
But I believe that's something that is this week going to be known for sure. I believe by the time this airs.
So by the time we talk about the next week's episode, we'll know more.
I'm thinking by the time people are listening to us right now, that might already be settled.
Gotcha.
But we're recording this early. So.
Right, yes.
As of the time we're recording, we don't have answers. And hopefully things go smoothly, is all I'll say, for production of television in general.
I don't think people in general have too much more patience for any more shenanigans here.
I know. All right, so tidbits about Secret History, which is what we're supposed to be talking about. I got some stuff from the Writers' Room, the Quantum Leap Writers' Room tweets, which usually I include in our episodes, but because we are now recording before episodes air, we got to catch those on the next episode. So again, this is all stuff about Secret History. One fact that I had questioned during our discussion on it is I didn't know what the bust was.
Okay.
That was in the secret room that Hannah hit Blue Eyes with. That was a bust of Sir Isaac Newton.
Ooh, okay.
We learned that from one of the Writers' Room tweets. We learned that Drew Lindo, who was the writer of that episode, he wrote an entire Einstein poem and had it translated into Greek for the art department to make that piece of paper that Hannah burned.
Wow.
That wasn't just scribbles. It wasn't random words. It was literally a poem that had been written and then translated into Greek.
So Drew Lindo created a formula for a bomb.
Well, created the cipher. Created the thing that was used before it was translated. Mm-hmm. But speaking of...
bombs?
Speaking of equations.
Okay.
Another tweet tells us that also Drew Lindo involved in this one. Very hands-on in working on this episode. So he utilized the Science and Entertainment Exchange, which is a resource that's available to people in the film industry.
Gotcha.
To research for this episode and consulted with Dr. Stephanie Diem, PhD. And Dr. Diem helped with all of the physics equations that you see on the screen. So when we see those, that boys club working, that's all real math that's on the board that this Dr. Stephanie Diem worked with Drew Lindo to produce. And you can spot Dr. Diem's name on the door at the Project Matterhorn.
I think I recall seeing that,
Yeah,
actually.
so there's a name on the door, and that's an Easter egg to the researcher that helped write the equations.
Okay, cool.
My cup of tea is almost gone already. I'm doing too much talking.
Right.
Too much talking. I'm used to you handling more. We haven't even gotten to the start of the episode yet.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to try and speed it up a little.
That's why I appreciate doing this background information, is it gives me a little bit of break from talking.
Okay, the other thing is the machine, the magnetic machine, right? That we were like, what was it called?
Yes.
Confirmation, it's called the Stellarator.
Which I think is what I refer to it as.
Yeah, we were right there.
Yippee.
We just were a little unpositive. It's called the Stellarator, and both the Stellarator and Project Matterhorn are very real. And this machine is still on display at Princeton University.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not positive that it didn't say in this tweet, but I'm fairly certain what we used in production was a replica of it.
We didn't use an actual Stellarator?
I mean, I don't think they actually went to Princeton to do any of this.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can go to Princeton University and see that actual original machine on display there.
Cool beans. I might make that trip sometime.
Maybe. It's not too far from us.
Yeah, there we go.
It'd be easier than this fictional trip to Nova Scotia we keep talking about.
Yes, I also want to do that. So, we have a lot of traveling plans in our future.
All right, so that's all I have about Secret History. You got anything else?
Nope. So, all right, so you're...
So moving along.
Moving along?
Did you want to talk about production stuff now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just a couple of notes before we dig into 207, which is what we're here for, I promise.
Right.
Production notes about the following 5 episodes.
Yes.
So 207 just aired, for those of you who are listening to this.
Right.
And 208 is airing on the 13th?
Yeah,
13th.
I believe it's the 13th, yep.
So many dates and times and things in my head for all these different shows we're covering. And then that's it, right? That's all that was done before the strikes.
Yep, that would be the mid-season finale.
Right, mid-season.
Could have very easily been the finale of season 2 in general.
Yeah, there's a chance that we didn't get more episodes. We're lucky that the strike settled when they did. And it allowed enough time for them to make the following 5 episodes that were originally ordered. So episodes 209 to 213 are in production right now. Episode 209, which is tentatively titled Off the Cuff. That's a title we got pre-strikes. It's possible they've changed that.
Yeah.
But that was the working title for 209. It started filming on Monday, November 27th.
Ooh.
Yeah, and 210, which was in pre-production as of last time I saw something, it's going to be another Shekinah written episode.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember reading something
The
about
episode will be written by Shekinah and directed by Jude Wang. And the information I have about this was because Shekinah had shared on her socials a casting call.
Okay.
They had a casting call up for an assigned female at birth, non-binary or trans male actor in their 20s to guest star as a character named Jean.
Okay.
And we also know from that casting call that episode 210 will be filmed December 7th through 18th.
Okay.
So right around the corner.
Yep.
And it'll be taking place in the 1950s.
Cool.
So it sounds like that's going to be an awesome episode.
It does indeed.
And then there's going to be 3 more episodes after that, and all we know is that one of those episodes will be directed by Deborah Pratt.
Which, it's conceivable that we can get her back to talk to us about her stint on that episode.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yes.
I don't have confirmation of which of the 3 episodes. I feel like I heard her in some interview say 212. But then when we spoke to her, she said she wasn't positive which episode it was going to be. But it's definitely going to be 211, 212, or 213, because those are the only ones left.
Right, basically.
Aside from these 2 that we already have information on. So that's what we know so far. They are filming. Like I said, 210 should be done filming by December 18th. And then, they're doing their production schedule. Basically, it's while one's filming, the other one's in pre-production, and so forth. So we're looking at... I don't know. I'm not great with numbers. End of January to mid-February to be done filming.
Right, and plus we need the pre-production.
Yeah,
and
I mean
time.
they're doing it. So the way NBC does it is they're doing everything at the same time, right? They have one team doing pre-production on one episode, production on the next episode, and post-production on the next episode.
Gotcha.
All three teams are working at the same time. So it is conceivable we start seeing episodes by the beginning of February.
Gotcha.
That's just a guess.
Right.
Excuse me. One thing I don't have in my notes, but I'll just kind of talk off memory is, there's some discussion on when will the show be airing once it does come back. We don't have the date yet for sure.
Yes.
But we can say with some confidence that we're moving time slots again.
Yeah, it seems like that.
And that's because if they have announced that starting January something, Wednesdays are going back to their Chicago lineup. So because when they're going to be doing that, unless they have a very short order of episodes they're airing, we're moving again.
Right.
My personal guess is Tuesdays at 10, just based on the schedule they've put out so far. That there's going to be an open slot there. They're airing the last 2 episodes of...
La Brea?
No.
Nope.
La Brea's 6 episodes.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Mondays.
Yeah, the other show
no. La Brea's... Wait. La Brea's Tuesdays at 9.
Right.
I think something like that. And then Tuesdays at 10, there's something that there's only 2 episodes left of. And again, I don't have this in my notes. I apologize that I'm kind of all over the place. I feel like, was it Found?
Something
It was
like that.
Found or The Irrationals or one of those.
It's not The Irrational. The Irrational is a new show.
Well, these are both new shows.
And they're only airing 2 episodes?
The 2 that didn't get finished before.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they only... Whatever show it is that's Tuesdays at 10, there's only 2 more episodes in January.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's The Irrational, because I would have recognized that, but...
So, whatever it is, there's going to be a time slot open Tuesdays at 10, and my best guess is that's where we're going, because I feel like that timeline's going to line up for us.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong. That's a total guess. Once we know for sure, of course, again, we'll share that.
All right.
But we can be prepared for it to not be Wednesdays at 8 anymore.
Right.
Which is sad, because I think it's a good time slot for us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so, I know you just did a lot of talking, and you're going to take a little bit of a moment to take a little break so that you can, recover your voice, because you're still kind of sick. I mean, I am too, but I think I'm better than you currently are.
I was doing really good, and then last night I just started coughing again. Yesterday we had a salesperson in our house. We're getting work done on our house, and we had someone here for 4 hours yesterday, so I did a lot of talking, and I think that was a mistake.
And then you did about 3 hours worth of podcast material.
Yeah, this is our second episode we're filming in a row, so...
All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode.
Okay, so, here we are. We're talking about 207, A Kind of Magic. See, I had to just double check the title because I didn't want to say it wrong after just correcting you. Okay, I liked it. I liked the setting. I think it was a fun episode. There's nothing to hate about it.
Right.
That being said, I wanted to love it.
Right.
And I didn't love it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it was a mostly filler episode. I mean, not every episode has to deal with the main plot, but at the same time, I kind of felt like this was a very lightweight episode.
Yeah. I mean, again, I liked it. I liked it. I'm not going to say I didn't like it.
Oh, I did like it.
Going in, knowing this, we were going to have this episode, I wanted it to be I felt like it's either going to be I hate it, or it's going to be one of my favorite episodes ever.
And
right?
It ended up in the middle.
It ended up in the middle. And I wanted it to be oh my God, I love this episode. It's my new favorite. And it's just not. And that's just because I have too many problems.
Okay.
I have too many problems. And again, I liked it. I'm not going to say this was terrible or anything like that. But I'll go through my problems.
All right.
Quickly.
When we do this scene by scene, or
well, just a couple points right now. Because then, I don't think we need to really go back to this stuff. But my first point is my usual complaint when we go too far back in history.
Yes, I see where you're going.
Again, this is the farthest any Leafer's ever gone. I had this problem with Salvation or Bust.
Yep.
We are over 100 years, 175 years earlier.
Yep. And I think you anticipated having this problem.
I did. And that's the fact that, Butterfly effect is
Mm-hmm.
real. We acknowledged it last, in Secret History. The term butterfly effect was thrown around.
Right.
The further back you go in history, the bigger the effects your changes are going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And saving people's lives in 1692 that originally died is going to change the world.
Right.
You're not changing these people's, unless, they died 2 years later and never had kids.
I mean, that would seem kind of pointless.
But the people whose lives we saved here are young people who, for every, reason you'd have to believe, they went on and had children.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we may even have seen the couple that did go on to have children in this episode.
Right. And one of those people was supposed to die.
Right.
So, give it, and I've said this a million times, so I don't want to spend too long on this, but if one of those characters, both of those characters, these people have children.
Mm-hmm.
In 1692, by the time we go all the generations to now, like that's 8, 9, 10 generations. I don't know. Again, math. But you're going to have thousands of descendants.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they had one child that, lived.
Right.
You could end up with thousands of descendants. If they had a dozen kids, which a lot of people did back then, that all lived to maturity, you could have millions of descendants of these people.
Wow.
And that's a big change to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because every single generation, that person that now exists, that didn't originally exist, could end up marrying somebody that originally married somebody different.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you have thousands or even millions of new people,
yeah,
you're losing all these other people that originally existed.
Yes.
Because people, even hundreds of years ago, are now with a different partner.
Mm-hmm.
So the original partner they were supposed to be with no longer has the kids they were supposed to have. And honestly, our population would be multi-millions of people different. We wouldn't have the same people.
Right.
In our world that we do today.
And that's just
if one person in the 1600s that had a child that wasn't supposed to have a child changes.
That's just talking about the 4 people that are saved in this episode.
Yeah.
That's not counting the fact that we also do something to affect the town's history by saving the town effectively.
Right. And we don't know exactly what the original history was in its entirety, but for certain there's at least 2 people that we know for a fact we saved that died originally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a problem for me that we don't acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. I'm okay if they make these changes. If they choose to make those changes. Great. I love that we're not sticking with 30-year history. Mm-hmm. I'm good with that. I'm good with traveling further and farther. I just want them to acknowledge that we need to be careful about what the heck we're changing. Because if the wrong person disappears from history, the project doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And then we have some, big, what's the word?
Paradox?
Paradox, yeah. And then the world blows up.
Yeah,
right?
And then we all die.
And I said I wasn't going to go on forever, and I am going on forever, so I apologize, but I just want acknowledgement of how big of a deal it is. Mm-hmm. As someone, I do genealogy, as someone who, looks at these numbers. Yeah. This is a huge deal. It's a huge deal when you save someone's life or end someone's life that far back in history that wasn't supposed to. Right. It would have unbelievable ramifications. Yeah. And this is bigger than putting a town on the map in the 1800s because we're in the 1600s. Right. 200 years of history is a lot of history. Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my next thing, I said going into this, I wanted it to be grounded in real history.
And it was not.
I wanted Salem witch trials. Mm-hmm. I feel like they tricked us a bit. Yeah. Because we're not in the Salem witch trials. Nope. Because we're not in Salem. Now, I can forgive this a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad about it. Because we're not in Salem. We're in some fictional town adjacent to Salem. Mm-hmm. But I'm disappointed. Mm-hmm. Because of all the promotional stuff made us think Salem 1692, we're in the witch trials. When in fact, we're just in some other witch trials. Right. So I was a little disappointed in that, brings me from the I love it to I liked it. Because I really want to I want to see some more real history, more than what we're getting. Yep. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I feel like it's a little silly that we're in 1692 specifically, because that's the year of the Salem witch trials.
Right.
And if they didn't want us to believe we're going to the Salem witch trials,
You would have.
why would they
them pick
have
a different year?
Right? They've been teasing 1692 all season. If it was 1693 or 1695, I'd be more comfortable with this story, because I wouldn't have been expecting the Salem witch trials.
Gotcha.
With the names from actual history that we know. Instead, we're getting a fictional town and fictional characters and a fictional burning that never ever happened in New England. No one was ever burned at the stake in New England.
Well, that's good to know.
In our world. I mean, it's been made perfectly clear, even from the original series, that we're not in our world. So it's okay that things are different.
Right.
Like, we know this isn't our universe. It never has been. And the third thing, which is one I'm just going to say here, but this is one that I'll expand on as we hit scenes. There's several times that Ben says and does things. This should have made the situation worse.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Okay. So anything else before we dive into it?
A couple things. I know
Okay.
I have a lot to say. I'm sorry.
So
that was it with my complaints.
Okay.
Okay. A couple of things. Watching this episode, the character of Morgan, the apothecary owner.
Yeah.
She reminded me of Mary Greeley, the character from Boogeyman.
Okay.
Okay.
How?
She reminded me of her. Like, I don't know. Like, I thought of her.
Okay.
And that made me look at, at that, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. In that episode, the Boogeyman, which we're not supposed to say,
Right.
the Halloween episode.
But you've already done it.
I did.
So damage is done.
We brought up 1692 Salem in that episode.
That's right, we did.
Yeah. Mary had told us that the woman who used to live in Joshua Ray's house, they called her Alice What's Her Name. We were told by the character of Mary that she was burned at the stake in Salem in 1692.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, that didn't happen in Salem in our history. No one was burned at the stake.
Right.
And that was something that script has been critiqued about over, the last 30 years. That, well, nobody was burned at the stake in Salem.
Right.
Like, that was some kind of error that they said that. But here we are getting a story where we're talking about people being burned at the stake near Salem. And I doubt this was intentional, but I almost feel like we're nodding at trying to fix that mistake.
Okay.
Of saying people were burned in Salem, by, now we have a story about people being burned near Salem, and we're getting to visit it. Also in that episode, Boogeyman, when Sam first leaped into Joshua Ray, he was looking at a book. The book was titled Witchcraft in America.
Yes.
And, it's very possible that's one of the resource books that Jen finds in the library.
Possibly.
Because Witchcraft in America, that's where we are. We're Salem.
Yep. Yeah.
So I felt like there were just these little possible, nods to that story.
It would make sense if they did do that.
And, I find it interesting, even we're in this unique setting, right? 1692, farther back than anybody's ever leaped. It's not anything we can directly compare this episode to another episode.
Nope.
It's not like we could say the boxing episode, and we
Yes.
know what two episodes we're comparing.
This is an entirely unique story.
Or, oh my goodness, I hate when sentences don't come out of my mouth.
I wish I could help you because I don't know
The
where
Justin
you're going.
Hartley episode.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Oh, Bounty Hunter. That's
Bounty
the word
Hunter.
my brain was trying to find. The Bounty Hunter episode.
Yep.
Where we have these direct parallels. The musician episode, where we're comparing Glitter Rock to Fellow Travelers.
That was one of my main appreciations for this episode is that, it was unique in its setting.
Right. But this is what I'm going to say. Even though we're in this really unique setting, we don't have a direct comparison. I'm finding comparisons.
Gotcha.
One being the little tiny nods in Boogeyman, which are almost like backwards nods, right?
Yep.
Like you feel like if all of this existed already, Sam could be nodding to this. And also, I'm reminded of A Single Drop of Rain.
Okay.
Which was about
a
drought.
Yes.
And that episode, we were trying to make the rain. But the conclusion of this episode reminds me a lot of that episode.
I see your connection there.
Where, we fix everything by making it rain.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I saw some parallels to that episode. I mean, not like huge parallels, but
it
drew it to my mind, you know. So I just found it interesting that even though we're in such a unique setting, we're still going to find original series episodes to, you know, contrast and compare here.
Gotcha. Yeah. Pretty cool stuff.
And that's all the notes I have before we talk about the actual episode.
So, 40 minutes in, we are finally talking about... well, we were already talking about the episode,
our scene-by-scene analysis. Yeah. And if you're still with us, God bless you. Thank you.
I mean, you know, this is the same crowd that stuck with us for 3 hours.
I know.
So.
I know. Yeah, we can do it. We got it.
All right, so Ben leaps in with a bunch of girls wearing old-fashioned outfits, doing He Loves Me Not over a guy named William. And I can relate to these girls because I was doing a similar thing when I was talking to Well, I'm still talking to her. I was doing that similarly with Carla. And, you know, you would have to be a really hardcore fan of this channel to get that reference. Or be my co-host, one or the other. But according to the flower, he does, in fact, love her.
Yeah.
And all the girls are excited.
And her would be Ben's host. Her name is Elizabeth. And William is the magistrate's son. Mm-hmm. And these 3 girls we're going to keep seeing throughout the episode. They don't have names. In my notes, I refer to them as just the girls, but in the credits, they're referred to as the maidens.
Okay.
And the actresses that play them are Jet Wilder, Shelby Lee, and Ruby J.
And we're going to hear a lot of actors' names because Stacie had to jump through quite a few hoops to actually find the actors' names.
It's a lot harder with screeners because we don't have IMDb.
Yes. Yep.
Now, one of those actresses, Ruby J, she's actually, you're familiar with her because she was in The Unicorn, which I know you covered that series.
Yes.
And she was also the main character in the Holly Hobby series.
Okay.
And I just wanted to bring her up specifically because on my first watch through of this, I was completely convinced that actress was Holly Taylor, who played Angelina on Manifest.
But it's not?
It's not. I totally thought that was her. And then, digging deeper, I was like, oh, that's not her. That's Ruby J. So she, in my mind, anyways, she bears a striking resemblance to Holly Taylor. And I'm really curious if anybody else thought that. What? After this episode airs, I really want to see if anybody's chattering about that. And if you're listening to us, if you have any idea what I'm talking about, let me know. Like, do you think Ruby J has any resemblance to Holly Taylor, or am I crazy? I'm very curious.
All right, let us know.
But in
my
mind, I think they'd be amazing playing sisters because I think they look so much alike.
You should recommend that. And in fact, I think you just did. But recommend it to someone who might actually hear it.
All right.
So the girl he's leaped into is named Elizabeth. I don't know if we covered that already.
I said that. But
okay.
Yep.
And they start doing the Kissing in a Tree song, which you will never find me kissing in a tree. I'm not very good walking on the ground. Never mind, being up in a tree. So never doing that.
Yeah, and you know what I was questioning that I didn't actually end up looking up is, does that song really date back this far, or is that just...
I'm not sure, but this is the kind of thing that little kids would do. And in this case, seems like, like women in their 20s that are doing it. So
well, they are...
Maybe teenagers?
They're probably teenagers, but they're unmarried women, which means they are still children.
Yes.
That's, in this age, you're a child and then you get married.
There you go.
It doesn't matter what age you are. There is no in-between.
Gotcha. So even if you're a 90-year-old and unmarried, you
if you're unmarried by 25, you're a spinster and you go live by yourself and they call you a witch.
And they, you have cats that you feed. And, yeah. Anyway, so the spinster would be the crazy cat lady version.
I mean, Morgan is probably considered a spinster at her age.
Gotcha. Okay. So they are approached by another girl who everyone seems to shun, and they make a reference to being late for the funeral. And what's this girl's name?
This girl is Bridget Smith, and she goes by the name Goody.
Goody, that's right. Okay.
And that's what I have. I refer to her in my notes. Goody, we'll learn in one of the next scenes, stands for good wife.
Okay.
And so that's, like a short name, it's like a nickname. But her actual name's Bridget Smith, and she's played by the actress Madeline Horsher. I know her from Big Sky. She was also in the show Origin, and she appeared in one episode of House.
Oh, did she now?
Among other things.
Interesting.
Of course, when I name credits, I just name the ones that stand out to me, not at all reflective of their whole filmography.
Right, the ones that we're familiar with. I'm curious about what episode of House she was in, but yeah. So the girl says that she didn't do it, and we're a little unclear as to what she's talking about. We have a cat rubbing up on Ben, which
black cat.
A black cat specifically, which she declares a bad omen.
Yeah.
So she shoos the cat away.
Yeah, I mean, we look at, black cat crossing your path as like a silly superstition, but they took that stuff pretty seriously back then.
I mean, some people still take it seriously now.
Well, sure.
Ben takes stock of where he is before he's called, and he ends up running forward, not knowing where he's going.
Yeah, so we see Ben running in this 1600s period dress.
Yes.
Which is an amazing sight.
Yep.
Through the town square, and we get this beautiful shot of this village. And let me just say, it's a beautifully dressed set.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they did an amazing job. Like, I want to live in this set. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like we're in the 1600s.
Yes, they do a very good job.
It doesn't feel like we're on some backlot. I mean, I don't know where they actually made this, but it's great. They did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's running, we follow that cat, right? That black cat. The cat goes across town. Everybody's shooing the cat. Everybody, like, sees black cat and is like...
Poor cat.
Yeah, they're like, you're the devil cat, right? And we follow this cat to a sign, and we learn that we are in Middletown.
Right.
And we learn that Middletown is somewhere between Salem and Boston.
And I was actually born in Middletown, but not Middletown, Salem.
Not Middletown, Massachusetts,
Boston.
because it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly. I was born in Middletown, Connecticut. Anyway, so back at the project, Rachel works at the project and successfully manages to block her boss's chip.
Yeah, so now Rachel has gained access to the project directly, I'm assuming through Jen, and is doing whatever she was supposed to do with the chip. I don't know, I necessarily understand any of that, but whatever that was about, it's done now.
Right.
We're told it's all fixed and there's no more data leak.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says she's got to get back to work and pretend like it didn't happen, so apparently her boss does not know about this betrayal. Yet.
But I'm sure it'll come back to bite her in some way.
I'm sure the storyline can't be as simple as that. Otherwise, I feel like it was a wasted storyline.
Right. Ziggy locates Ben, and Ian is shocked. It's soon revealed that he is in 1692. The further back he's ever leaped.
Furthest back anyone's ever leaped.
Right. That we know of, anyway.
Right.
Ian says records are going to be a problem, and Jen grabs for the hand leak, which Ian objects to, saying Jen was in it last time, so Ian ends up winning this round.
Yeah, and you know what? I wonder if that's like a meta reference here. So another tidbit from the last episode, Secret History, which I didn't mention, this one actually came out in some of those interviews. There was a lot of amazing interviews on the last episode, so if you guys didn't check those out on all the other podcast channels, go listen to them. One tidbit that came out during those interviews is that in Secret History, Ian was supposed to be the hologram.
Okay.
And Ian was supposed to win that game of rock, paper, scissors that they did in Secret History.
Interesting.
But Mason had COVID.
Oh, that's right.
So they had to change their filming schedule, which meant that they rearranged the episode and made Jen the hologram.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if Jen was supposed to be the hologram throughout this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But because they had her the hologram in Secret History, if they changed it and, gave Ian a turn.
That makes sense.
I don't know if that's the case or not, but I feel like that could be. And this whole, you got to do it last time was kind of a meta comment on how filming ended up happening outside of what the script said.
I wouldn't be surprised. So Ben is attending the funeral. He talks to a girl who we later learn is Bridget, and this is the good wife that you were just talking about.
Goody, yep.
He suggests he thinks the girls are gossiping about her, and they think she had something to do with Josiah's death. I didn't quite catch the name, but I think it was like Josiah.
Josiah, yep.
Which
was her husband.
Yeah. He's all like, well, you didn't, right? And she's all offended that he would even ask. Ian, in the back, gets Ben's attention, and Ben says he's going to go to the back to pray. And Bridget, of course, seems to accept this.
Yeah, and Ben says something funny. He says, it's just gossip. That can't hurt you.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know how wrong you are, Ben. That
right.
Gossip can hurt you in this setting.
Yeah. Ian gives Ben the skinny and brings up Hannah, which Ben is uncomfortable talking about because he knows he's being watched.
Ian's like, I've been dying to talk to you, Hannah. That kiss. And Ben's just like, no, We're not going to do that. I know Addison's watching.
Like, once again, I bring up the fact that maybe we should have some kind of privacy setting so you can have conversations without being monitored.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Reverend speaks. There's a drought in the town and an infliction, which Ben thinks might be a disease, but which the townspeople think must be a punishment. They are thinking that they are being punished because there's some witches in the town. The magistrate ends up talking to Elizabeth, whose son, William, is ill. He asks him if Goody, who he happens to be the servant girl of, if she has been behaving strangely or unnaturally lately.
Yeah, like dancing naked in the woods.
Nope, and I have not been doing that either. Ben is catching the drift, and Ziggy says Goody is burned at the stake. William ends up suddenly collapsing. Ben determines he has no pulse. William apparently died in the original history, but Ben does CPR and resurrects him, which excites Ben, but everyone else, not so much.
Yeah, he's kind of cheering in excitement. Everybody's silently gawking, and he's like, what's the problem? I saved his life.
Right.
And, Ian tells us, well, CPR hasn't exactly been invented yet, and it looks like you just brought someone back from the dead.
I mean, technically he did, but
which, is a problem.
Right.
Because they think you are a witch. The whole crowd cheers at the same time.
Okay, so...
Which, Ben should have saw that coming, given that we were just told Goody's going to be accused of being a witch.
Right, so Ben is kind of dopey in this moment, but he thinks that maybe saving William will help this situation somehow. And in fact, he's very, very wrong.
Yeah, Ben's not, doesn't have his 17th century... Wait, did I do that backwards? 15th century?
Something along those lines. So, good news, according to Ian, Ben saved William's life. The bad news, he's put in the gallows, and now he's going to die. And he's getting blamed by the magistrate for all of the town's problems. The other girls are quick to point the finger, and makes the first of many smelling sulfur references, which will be important. And it's funny, like... this day and age, we kind of think of women as vicious, sometimes. With their gossip and their pointing fingers, and it's that much more severe back then.
Right. I mean, that is what happened in Salem. I mean, if you're familiar at all with Crucible, that is based on... I
am familiar with that. I was actually in that play.
That's based on the actual history of Salem. And, it started with girls accusing people, right? That's where it all started. So, yeah, this is not at all out of history that we're seeing this little group of girls kind of starting at all the trouble, right? And being the ones to kind of orchestrate, really, everything that's happening. And
so all things that are bad, you're saying, are blamed on women.
Well...
They're responsible for everything that's bad.
It's also, the men's reactions to what they have to say, like the Reverend and the magistrate. Speaking of which, I didn't mention the Reverend Crane is played by John Hans Tester. He's in The Man in the High Castle as well as Royal Pains. Those are the two things I know him from.
Royal Pains, okay.
And Magistrate Bloodborne is played by Brian Van Holt, and his son William is played by Michael Provost. Michael Provost was in Fear Street Part 2, 1978.
I was going to say, I recognize that name.
And the Fear Street trilogy movies that just came out, was it last year on Netflix? They also involve a history of witchcraft.
Oh, that's interesting.
Witch trials. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And I would recommend that checking that series out on Netflix if you have it. It's pretty good. So... Yeah.
Did you lose your spot? I did too.
I did.
Sorry.
Another woman gains their attention by whistling. This woman and this woman is actually Morgan, tries to end the foolishness and says that the girls are no more witches than she is, to which Ian dryly says that she probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. So this is Morgan McKenna, and she's played by Amanda Jaros.
Amanda calls Jen and tells her she needs to hurry back with the books.
Addison calls Jen.
What did I just say?
I just said Amanda, and you went with it. Amanda's the actress that plays Morgan.
Right.
Addison called Jen.
Yes. And, basically says, hurry back because there's about to be a full-blown witch trial.
Yeah.
Goody ends up talking about how Josiah died.
Yeah, she's asked to explain the death. So we're like in the trial.
Right.
Like that quickly, we went from being accused to here's your trial. No prep time, no legal representation. We're just going to ask you questions and decide your fate.
That's a little scary. For sure.
So she's explaining what happened with her husband Josiah.
She tried to save him. She gave him water.
He had a fever.
Tried to get the fever down.
Lasted a fortnight. That's 2 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
I actually had no idea what fortnight was.
She said she gave him both of their rations. Remember, we're in a big drought, so water's very limited. She gave her rations to him as well. It didn't help. And she says she gave him some tea that she got at the apothecary. Now, the apothecary, of course, is run by Morgan.
Right.
So she's now incriminating her co-defendant here.
Yep. And the magistrate accuses her of making a deal with the devil. He wants her to confess, which is the only way she could be saved. Goody pleads with the townspeople that she is no witch, but according to Ian, she still dies.
Yeah, and we're told that the punishment, if you guys are found guilty, is being burned at the stake. And we got a very meta-y response from one of the girls. They made a comment like, weren't the witches hung in Salem?
Right.
Because they weren't burned. Like that didn't happen. But in this town, the magistrate's deciding he wants to stick with the traditional European methods of fire, death by fire. And the
more fun that way.
The girl is even like, wait, that's not what Salem did, last week.
Yeah. The other girl, Morgan, is put on the stand because she doesn't conform. She doesn't wear her bonnet or whatever. And the magistrate accuses her of being a witch.
Yeah, because the flowers in front of her shop always live, even when everyone else's die. And she says, it's because I treat my water with carbon. You should try it. It's called science.
But her final answer that she isn't a witch doesn't help her case, and she too is put on the death list. At the project, Magic returns and says he doesn't like how this movie ended.
Yeah, and he, of course, is referring to the Crucible.
Yes. He does not answer Addison's question about where he's been. And hey, I already answered this question. He was off filming Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jen returns to say that Ben needs to plead guilty. And she goes into the imaging chamber saying, as his lawyer to Ben, she said.
Yeah, he said, I heard you need a lawyer.
Right. He needs
Which is great.
Yeah. He needs to plead guilty. The only ones that didn't die were the ones that pled guilty.
Right. That's true. That's what happens during witch trials is if you plead guilty, you're spared. Mm-hmm. You can atone for your sins. But if you proclaim your innocence, they find you guilty, say you're lying, and they kill you.
I know which way I would go in that, but...
But Ziggy says there's an 80% chance that if they say they're guilty, they will live and Ben will leap.
Ben doesn't think that's enough, though. That 80% number is good enough to, go through with this plan.
Right.
He asks the magistrate what happens if he confesses, and is basically told that they will be stripped of all of their property.
Right. Goody's going to lose her house. Morgan's going to lose her shop. And basically they'll be poverty-stricken outcasts.
Right. So, yay. I mean, I guess is that better than death?
It's better than death, but, I mean, and this is why, people did admit to being witches, because it was better than death, but...
Not by much. I mean, if your life is basically destroyed and left in ruins, is that really much better than death? But, yeah, Addison back at the project says...
the team is debating these issues.
Says the women are damned if they do, damned if they don't. She thinks the cost of saving their lives might be too high. I'm not sure that I disagree with her.
Yeah, but Jen says, you know what? If he doesn't do it, they're all going to die.
Right.
Including Ben. Because he's not going to leap. He's going to die in Elizabeth's body.
In the past, Ben is refusing to go along with this. Jen says, then they will all die, which is what happened in the original history.
Yeah.
Ben decides to call William.
Right, because he just remembered. He's already changed history. He saved William's life. Because in the original history, William died, during the funeral.
Right. Jen says that Ziggy says there's a 93% chance he will help them.
Yeah, so yay, good plan, right?
Yeah. Ben ends up quoting Hannah and asks for William to testify.
Yeah, and his quote, he says, "Oh, I read this once."
Mm-hmm.
Did girls read? I mean, did young unmarried women, like, even know how to, like, read in the 1600s?
I couldn't tell you.
I read this quote once. He says, "Magic is just science we don't understand yet."
Yep, and that's a sly little reference to Hannah.
Yeah, but, okay. Do you honestly think that that statement is helping your case when you're on trial for witchcraft? That magic isn't bad?
Right. I think Ben is basically thinking from a rational perspective, and these people very much are not.
Yeah, you're trying to tell these people, no, I'm not a witch. I'm not doing magic.
Right.
And your defense is, hey, magic is good. There's nothing wrong with magic. It's just science.
Right. Okay, but William does not, in fact, help them. Not in this moment, anyway.
Yeah, they ask him specifically, is Elizabeth a witch?
And
because, she saved your life, so you know.
Right. William ends up saying that she is, in fact, a witch. And this gets them all sentenced to death for the crime of witchcraft.
Yeah, he says, I felt her hot breath on me, the CPR, because, I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yep.
Like, she put her lips on mine. You can't do that.
Right. Now, at first glance, this might seem like another instance where Ziggy is falling down in the job.
Right.
But it turns out that's not actually the case.
And he also says when he woke up, he smelled sulfur.
Mm-hmm. So,
of course, she's a witch.
Right.
And yeah, all three girls are sentenced to death, and that's bad.
Right. Yes, I would say so.
Now, in the original history, we know for sure that Goody was sentenced to death.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth wasn't.
Yeah.
Because Ben made that happen. I'm not 100% on Morgan. Like, I don't think they told us one way or the other if she got involved originally. Like, did she stand up for Goody originally?
Yeah, not really
Or did she only stand up because there were two of them now?
Mm-hmm. Ben's new friends, if you could call it that, because they're not exactly on good terms right now, Morgan and Goody, are pissed at Ben that they are locked away.
Yeah, they're in a jail cell underground at this point.
Ben tries to look for a way out.
And we get some great banter with Jen during all of this.
Mm-hmm. Morgan calls the townspeople stupid. Goody is still defending them, and Morgan and Goody are not exactly getting along.
Yeah, they are having a lot of words. And Ben notices that the wall is wet.
And Ben asks if they smell sulfur, which makes Morgan laugh because she smells it too. Ben thinks it might be a hallucination, but Morgan laughs, suggesting maybe they are witches and they just don't know it yet.
Yeah, and this
is literal gallows humor right now. So anyway, you were going to say.
I was just going to say this is, foreshadowing of the actual resolution of this whole situation is we're smelling sulfur underground next to a wet wall.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's interesting because we've already brought up the sulfur smell already in this episode. Back at the project, Jen says they have till sundown to resolve this issue. Ian is having a seance.
Yeah.
Looking to talk to Dorothy, who is that exactly?
Okay, so it's his great grandmother. I think I quoted the greats properly.
Okay.
Who was accused of witchcraft.
But according to Ian, she was scared away by Jen's cynicism.
Yeah. So I feel like, okay, using the name Dorothy as Ian's ancestor here, I feel like it could be a Wizard of Oz reference. We get a lot of Wizard of Oz references in this series. We got one during season 1. I forget exactly which episode, but we had a Yellow Brick Road reference. And we actually get one at the end of this episode.
Yep.
In our Leap Out.
Yes.
So I feel like on one hand, this is another Wizard of Oz reference, which does involve a witch. That story.
Yeah.
But also, remember I was talking about...
witches, actually.
Right. Remember I was talking about Boogeyman earlier?
Yep.
Dorothy is the name of one of the characters in that episode.
That's right.
Yeah. So potential something, maybe, probably not.
Maybe.
But Jen jokes that this is like a bad Zoom call.
Right.
The fact that Ian is having a hard time communicating with Dorothy.
In the past, Ben appeals to one of the guards, whose wife he thinks his wife is barren.
Yeah, okay, so the character is Sam Wilshire, and Sam is played by Chuck Philippov. I probably said that wrong. So yeah, he came down to give them food, and he's like, this is your last meal. Here it is. And I didn't see what was on the plate, but it didn't look impressive. And Jen recognized the name, Wilshire, and she's like, hey, I know that name, but she didn't know why at this point. Mm-hmm. And Ben tries, pleading with them and says, we could be your sisters or your daughters. And that's why Sam took offense, because he thought that Elizabeth was mocking him for the fact that his wife can't have children.
Right. But apparently he can. His wife is, in fact, already pregnant.
Right, and this is what Jen remembers suddenly why she knows the name Wilshire. It actually comes up in Massachusetts records for years, all starting with Sam's daughter, Sabrina.
Is this an actual person or a made-up person?
I mean, I didn't research it. I'm guessing it's made up, since every character in this episode's made up.
Yep.
But this is clearly a Sabrina the Teenage Witch reference.
Right.
In my mind. Mm-hmm. Saying his daughter's name's Sabrina. Like, I feel like we're hitting it heavy here.
Oh, yeah. So Ben tries to use this information, but it doesn't work, unsurprisingly.
Right, okay, so yeah, Sabrina's born 8 months from now, which means his wife's already pregnant. And so Ben tells him this.
Yeah.
Morgan backs him up and says, yeah, she came in my shop and bought ginger root to help with the nausea. So, right, this is one of those instances. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't think that predicting someone's going to have a baby is a good way to convince this dude that you're not a witch.
Right, yeah. Which is...
Like, I'm not a witch. Your wife's going to have a baby. What?
Right. So basically, Ben thinks that, getting him to think that he's going to, have this kid is going to help him in some way. But it does not help his case at all.
Although it does end up helping him, because this guy gets, Sam gets really aggressive. Mm-hmm. And things get physical. There's a little bit of a physical altercation between Ben and Sam. It's weird saying those names together like that.
Yep.
Through like the bars in the cell. And the end result is Ben managed to steal Sam's keys to the cell.
And the girls end up making their escape.
Yeah, and we see this image of a full moon.
Ooh. They're suggesting going to Boston. And Jen says he gets Goody, specifically Goody, out of town, and then he will leave.
Right, because that's the person who originally died. That's who you're here to save.
They go to Morgan's house, which has already been looted.
Yeah, because she says she's got money there and everything they need to get away.
But she has some money back at the shop, which she says she's going to go and get.
Yeah, and, so she says she's got some other money, and there's these 2 horses in the back. So she's going to go get the horses ready. They're going to ride out of town. That's the plan. But like you said, the shop's been ransacked. She tells Ben and Goody to, gather whatever supplies you can from this mess, whatever you can carry, and meet me out back in a minute.
Morgan goes to the shop and realizes that one of her horses is gone, which I guess this is the moment where she decides to just fend for herself. Ben realizes that charcoal was used to clean some water in Morgan's shop.
Right, which Morgan already told us about.
Right, yep, she did.
But this is the moment where Ben points that out to Goody, which, Goody's going to learn something from Ben.
Yep.
And we have this moment where Goody picks up a pointed black hat, what we would consider a witch hat, and tries it on her head.
She looks fashionable.
Yeah, so I did some research into this. I was like, what is the history of the witch hat, right? Like, okay. I was like, what are they saying here? So I found that, this actually was high fashion at the time for women. This would have been something that was not abnormal at all for a woman to wear in this period. And, so she's not making some witch joke here, like what we see it as.
Right.
She's literally just saying, hey, how's this hat look on me?
Right.
And also, earlier in this history, dating back to the 1400s, the pointy hat actually originated with women who brewed beer.
Okay.
Okay, so they would wear these pointy hats in the middle of, like, a crowd in the marketplace. And it was so that people could pick them out of a crowd and they'd know where to go to. So people would see the pointy hat, find their way to that person in the crowd so they know who they could buy beer from. And these women made beer in cauldrons. which also lent itself to something we, think of, and we think of witches, the pointy hat and the cauldron. And those all started with these women who brewed beer.
Okay.
And throughout history, these women who brewed beer would also become people who brewed other concoctions, such as Morgan, who runs an apothecary.
Okay.
So,
were these women ever, were these the type of women that were accused of witchcraft, or?
Potentially. I don't think, specifically they were targeted, but enough so that that's where these symbols came from.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it makes sense that someone in Morgan's position would be the type of person that would be accused, because they're, doing natural remedies. They're using herbs. These are things that, seem abnormal.
Okay.
Seem a little magical, right?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And, that fits with what we think of as witchcraft. We're like, oh, you're making a potion.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so it all, goes hand in hand with each other. And it makes sense that she would have this hat possibly as part of her profession.
Mm-hmm.
That could still be a thing. But also, like I said, I found that it had become a high fashion by this time in history.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Goody ends up saying that Ben, his entire manner has changed, the way he's talking has changed, and he's perhaps wondering if she actually is in fact a witch.
Yeah, I think at this point, Goody absolutely thinks Elizabeth is a witch.
Right. She says that he can trust her.
And asks, how do you know about the pregnancy?
Right, yeah. Ben brings up the ginger root in response to that, which made him, that's his excuse for why he thought that, why he knew about the pregnancy.
Yeah, but also, you don't know that she's pregnant.
Right.
He could have been making that up, so
right.
that's...
Yeah, that's the other thing, is perhaps that was just a story to try to get him on his side. They hear the sounds of horses going by, and they believe that they have been abandoned by Morgan.
This is when they realize Morgan left them. And the reason she left is because all three of them couldn't fit on one horse, because the other horse had been taken. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, I gotta fend for myself.
Right. As the townspeople are going crazy in the streets,
yeah, they're
lanterns.
A mob is gathering. They're getting ready to burn the witches. Remember, this is supposed to happen at sunset, and it is dark out now.
Yes. The door opens to reveal William. He is in fact on their side and is willing to help get them out of town.
Yeah, he says he found a way to get them out of town, but they have to hurry.
Right. He gives them some money, and by the way, this is Ziggy being proven right, that he is in fact going to help them.
Yeah, and Jen reminds us, Ziggy said 93% chance he was going to help. So he pays an apple vendor, this guy who has a cart full of apples, to smuggle the girls out of town and get them to Boston. And the apple merchant is played by Tim Gilbert. I think I have now officially mentioned all the people in the episode.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Ben ends up telling William that he can't live his life in fear, that he should talk to his dad about how he really feels about things.
Yeah, to stand up to your dad. And I was a little confused by that. Did I miss that something? Was there some history that we learned that he doesn't stand up to his dad? He
didn't stand up to his dad in the trial.
I mean, he didn't stand up to the trial.
Yeah.
But does that specifically tell us, it's something between him and his dad? I mean,
yeah,
if he had gone on record and been like, no, she's not a witch, he might have gotten accused.
Right, yeah.
I mean...
Maybe that was not the instance to stand up for Ben at that point.
Yeah.
Or against his dad, for that matter. So his dad happens upon William.
Yeah, and the girls are hiding, under a sheet on the apple cart.
Right. And William is saying, I just wanted an apple. And he comes very close to finding them because of a falling apple.
Yeah, an apple falls off the cart, but instead of looking under the sheet, the magistrate just picks up the apple and gives it to his son.
So he doesn't discover them. Addison and Magic, back at the project, she says Ben should be weeping soon, and reveals her frustration. She was supposed to be the weeper, and then she was the hologram, and now she can't even really do that.
Yeah, she said...
She refers to herself as the worst intern ever.
Yeah, the worst intern ever, which I think that's great. The fandom has been like, what's Addison doing?
Right.
She has no role.
I have said that.
And she's expressing, I feel this. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not a tech person. I can't help with Ziggy. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. Magic, by the way, ends up disputing that she is, in fact, the worst intern ever, saying that there was one that was actually worse.
Yeah.
So, way to make her feel better there. Magic reveals that he met with his sponsor.
Yeah, that's what he was doing on his day off.
Not filming Ghostbusters. He feels that the community can lift you up, or in the case of the town, can tear you down.
Yeah, and he compares it all to alchemy and transmutation. It's this, like, very kind of silly analogy to talk about our witchcraft episode.
Right, but he's suggesting turning a bad situation into a good one.
Yeah, right.
And Addison asks, well, how do I do that? Magic says, you can focus on the things that you can change. You can't change what Ben does. You can't change how he feels. She has control over herself and how she reacts to the situation, and her love for Ben and finding a way to help him, which is a kind of magic, he says. Ben in the past asked Goody what she will do in Boston, and she really has no idea.
Yeah, and he kind of realizes she doesn't want to leave. She's leaving because she doesn't have a choice. They want to kill her here.
Right.
But her whole life's here. She's never been anywhere else, and these are her friends, and she's really feeling pretty let down.
Betrayed.
Yeah.
They hear screams, but realize that they caught Morgan.
Okay, so what happens is Jen arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Jen tells Ben, stop! And then Ben makes the driver stop.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks what's wrong, and Jen says, as soon as you hit that crossroads, which is like 5 feet in front of the horse, you're going to leave because Goody's going to be safe.
So why stop him in the first place?
Right. Well, she says, but they caught Morgan.
Okay, so
if you go another 10 feet, you're going to leave.
Right.
But Morgan's been caught.
But then, so he tells Ben this information, and yet he's annoyed with Ben acting on this information. She's like, she later makes a reference to Matt Addison about keeping him on mission.
Right.
If you just wanted him to go across the bridge.
So she was acting impulsively and morally, you got to go save Morgan. Because I don't think Morgan originally died. They didn't 100% tell us that, but I think that's where we're leaning here is, it's your fault she's in trouble. You got to go save her.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other side of her is like, oh, that's not your mission. Your mission is to save Goody.
Then why bring it up in the first place?
Exactly.
If you didn't want him to act on this, why do it at all?
So, of course, Ben, being the moral compass that he is, he jumps off the cart and he's like, come on, Goody, we got to go save Morgan. And she's not having it. She's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not risking my life. They're going to hang me, or not hang me, burn me if I go there.
Right.
You do what you want to do. I'm staying on this cart. Now, that's not going to work. If she stays on the cart and crosses that line, regardless of where Ben is, he's going to leap.
Right.
Assuming that what he's actually here to do is save her, because that's what
I actually am not totally sure about that, based on how this episode ends. But Ben begs her, gives an impassioned speech saying hate is a dead end. He would know. And I'm not sure what he's referring to. Is he referring to the whole Addison situation?
I'm not entirely sure.
So,
but he convinces Goody not to run away, and she decides to go with him. They go back to the town. By this point, the sun is rising. It's starting to become light out, and the townsfolk have started a fire. They've caught Morgan. They're ready to burn her, like, right now.
Right. Jen back at the project says Ben was close to leaping till he wasn't.
Yeah,
and
so
that's her own fault.
He says, how is this possible? He was ready to leap, and see, this is where I'm like, Jen, you're being kind of shady here. She goes, well, he was until he wasn't. And this is when she looks at Addison and she's like, how do you ever keep him on mission? When it was her fault.
Right.
She's the one who took him off mission.
Right.
He wouldn't have even known what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think this was her just trying to cover herself because she realizes she's the one who took him off mission. But didn't they see this happen on the monitors? Wasn't anybody watching to see her, like, physically stop him when he was about to leap?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Ian speaks some nonsense about astrology.
They're looking at an astrology book, and they state that it's almost dawn on this day in 1692. Without ever telling us what that day is, I might add. We don't have a date, even though we're referencing the date here without saying it.
But apparently, it's close to rain.
Yes, there's a 50-50 chance it's about to rain at dawn, which doesn't seem like great odds, but it's enough for them, I guess.
Addison wants Jen to go back in and explain to Ben that it's supposed to rain, but Jen's like, I don't understand any of what you're talking about, so you should go and do that.
Right.
Addison says Ben doesn't want to see her, but Jen suggests he might prefer seeing you to being burned at the stake.
Yeah, but between seeing his ex and being burned at the stake, he's probably going to pick his ex.
I mean, I would.
I think that's an accurate assumption.
Yeah.
Most people is going to face their ex over being burned at the stake as a witch.
Yes. She appears to Ben, who is relieved to see her.
Yeah, and she's very reluctant about this whole thing. And she's like, I'm sorry, and he's like, it's cool.
Right.
Help.
Right. Yeah, he's even more relieved when she says she has a plan, revealing that it's going to rain soon, which would end the drought.
Yeah, and before she can even really tell whatever her plan is, he jumps into action.
Right.
He's like, okay, and just like goes out into the crowd. And Addison's like, well, wait, what are you doing?
Ben decides to just go right in and plead for the town to not burn Morgan. Morgan is surprised that they came back for her.
And Goody also, follows Ben, Elizabeth, follows the lead here. And she does these, like, witchy sounds and movements, like she's threatening them as a witch. And I'm not really sure why she's doing that.
Maybe to scare them into, like,
I don't
keeping
think
them at
she
bay.
knows the plan.
Right. The magistrate says to get them, but William speaks up and says to let them speak.
Right. He finally stands up to his father. Is like, give her a chance to speak.
I think that would have worked a little bit better if we had seen more of the relationship between William and his father.
Yeah.
Other than that vague reference from Ben, but still, whatever. Ben makes an impassioned speech saying the town is afflicted with fear, but the town is better than this. He calls for God.
Yeah, he says, let heaven decide our fate, meaning,
Right.
the witches.
Right. If God doesn't want them to burn, then it should rain. And he calls to let it rain multiple times with nothing happening.
Right, because, again, we don't know if it's actually going to rain. Like,
Right.
we found there's a chance that the drought's about to end, but the records are pretty sketchy, right? And this is where we're really, like, again, a single drop of rain. They were told it's not supposed to rain, and Sam was like, I'm going to make it rain. I need it to rain right now. Please rain.
Yep, and it doesn't work then either. It actually ends up randomly happening towards the end of that episode.
Yeah.
I rather love that episode. I'm kind of keen to revisit it. But I have to wait a little while. The magistrate says, well, you wanted the gods to decide your fate, so be it. And then it starts to rain.
Yeah, Ben had managed to procrastinate the situation just long enough that nobody's been burned yet.
The town celebrates, and the project celebrates as well.
Yeah. Now, this reminds me of something else we've covered, and that was the first season of Under the Dome.
Oh, yes.
So we covered the series Stephen King's Under the Dome. We covered the first season of that so far anyways. We still have to get back to that eventually.
I'm pretty sure, maybe we'll get to it before the end of the year. If not, we'll do it early next year.
Yeah. So one of the plot lines in that, show is the town goes pretty cuckoo. And they all are brought out of their brought to their senses when a drought ends.
Right.
Which is exactly what happens here. The rain comes, and the presence of this rain, just brings everyone to their senses, and we're no longer cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Right.
Now, my question.
Okay.
Would this have really worked?
I doubt it.
Would predicting it's about to rain when we've been in this crazy drought have made these people in this setting where we believe in witches and right down the street we are killing people every day for being witches, would predicting the rain stop them from killing you because they think you're a witch?
Well, the only thing I would say to that is Ben spoke to God and said, if you don't want us to die, let it rain. So maybe
wouldn't somebody just be like, you were not speaking to God, you were speaking to the devil?
I don't know. I really think that this conclusion, all in all, is way too easy.
Yeah.
Which is a criticism I have of this episode.
I entirely think predicting the rain is something that, even if you hadn't already been accused of witchcraft, is enough to get you killed at this point in history. Yeah,
basically, every time Ben has tried to predict something, it has not worked in his favor in this episode.
It shouldn't.
No.
It shouldn't.
So,
they do not have meteorologists in 1692.
Right. So the girls say that the magistrate was wrong, so he should in fact be burned.
They're like, burn him!
So, yeah, these girls are evil. I think maybe we should be taking a look at these girls speaking to the devil, because they are way too quick to just be like, yeah, burn them!
Yeah.
These girls
but
are
Ben
straight
steps
evil.
in and is like, no more burning people, stop!
Right. Using the magistrate's speech that they must determine what kind of town they wish to be, Ben pleads to not do this. And Ben still smells sulfur. He realizes that the well is contaminated.
Yeah, because one of the other girls smells it too, and he traces it to the well.
Goody offers him a burnt piece of wood, charcoal, to clean it up.
Yeah, which is something she learned from Ben. He taught the town science.
Nice.
Isn't that good?
It is.
And, yeah, so that's the reason they've been getting sick, because the water's contaminated.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been having, the only water they've had is this really nasty, poisoned water that's making them sick and dying.
So everything is saved. Everybody is everything's all good now. William and Goody sit with Ben at the bench. Goody goes to leave, and Ben says goodbye, which confuses her because she's just going over here,
Yeah.
2 feet away. So she's not really going anywhere.
Yeah, she's like, you still work for me, right? I'll see you later.
Right. William kisses his cheek, and Addison appears to make a joke, saying, "Well, it's nice to see that you have moved on."
Yeah,
Which is
talking
cute.
about
Right.
William's kiss.
She reveals that there is no death list in Middletown.
Yeah,
anymore.
so nobody's going to die in this town. Yay.
Yay! Okay.
And still making it a little unclear of how many people we actually saved
Right.
from the original history.
Right.
Like, how many people died originally. The only person we know for certain was Goody
And
William, who died, from the fever.
Yep.
So, for certain, Ben saved those 2 people's lives, but potentially a bunch of other people that this situation originally snowballed. But we didn't really get numbers until he started changing things, so.
And William kissing Ben on the cheek could indicate that that's where the children are going to start popping out from.
I mean, she loves him, he loves her, he loves her not, right?
Yeah.
We learned he loves her, so.
Aw, that's so sweet. Anyway, Ben ends up patching up things with Addison.
Yeah, he tells her the reason he didn't want to work with her anymore is that he was scared of what it would do to him. But now he realizes he's scared of what might happen to him if he continues to shut her out.
Right. He doesn't know what it's going to be like to, be friends with her and continue to being a hologram together, but he's willing to give it a try. And he asks, "Will you be my hologram again?"
Yeah.
She smiles, and then Ben leaves, and he leaps into Egypt.
He leaps into Egypt, the Egypt episode that we've been teasing since, before the season started. He's in I want to call it a chariot. I don't think that's the right word.
I'm not even going to try.
We've got a pyramid in the background. We are Egypting it up, and we know this was actually filmed in Egypt, which is super cool. This is not CGI. And we get our final Wizard of Oz reference for the episode. Ben says, "Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore."
Yes, very cute.
And that's the episode.
Yep. And that is where the episode ends. Next week we'll get episode 8. Which is the mid-season finale.
Even though we're further than mid-season.
Right. But thankfully not the season finale of season 2 altogether.
We're positive there are 5 more episodes. Well, there are more episodes coming. Of course, there is still a chance, I guess, that all 5 don't end up getting made. But that's the plan, is we're getting 5 more episodes.
Well, let's just hope it doesn't go that
You can never say, for certain until something's done. But, yeah, so the series will be back next Wednesday on the 13th. 8/7 Central on NBC.
Sweet deal.
And we're going to be in Egypt.
Yep.
So make sure you come back to listen to us again after that episode.
Right. Do we have anything else to say about this episode?
I think we said enough.
So you think we've talked for a long enough time?
Anymore.
No? Okay. All right. Well, we would like to hear from you. What do you think of the podcast? What do you think of the episode? Stacie, can we reach that?
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as ourselves. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.